Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's the Pest and Lawn Ginja, and this is What's Wrong With My Lawn. Now, if you're new to the channel, What's Wrong With My Lawn is a series that I've developed where I go to other people's houses and show you exactly what's going on with their lawn in the current state and also how to fix it. So we're gonna go through my 5 diagnostic steps of checking color, pattern, water saturation, a debris test, and a pull test to come to the right conclusion. Really excited to dive into this lawn. It's a topic that's talked about a lot, but really not talked about in detail. So what do you do after you sod? Because you put the sod down, months later, you're presented with a ton of issues. And it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, but let's start with the walkthrough. So let's kick this off with a nice walkthrough. This square patch of grass, it's about 3,800 square feet. I know a little bit of the history of the lawn because the homeowner reached out to me last year, said this is exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to build a property with a purpose. So we began by bringing in truckloads of soil because the soil here, and I'll show you right next to it, it's silty clay. And if you've ever dealt with silty clay, I rarely talk about dirt being a problem, but it's suffocating. You've got really fine sand mixed in with clay and it becomes extremely hard when it dries out. There's just not a lot of oxygen transfer. So he pulled in, I want to say it was 12 to 15 tons of dirt, and then he laid sod right over the top of it. Did a pretty decent job, but we've got some issues going on that I want to make very transparent. We've got some weeds creeping in, especially here in the middle, very brown. On the outside areas, it's a lot more green. So we've got to talk about a few things, and that's what makes this episode so exciting is what do you do after you lay sod? Number one of the diagnostic steps is going to be identifying patterns. So your patterns, they're generally going to be uniform or they're going to be random. So if we look overall on what's going on, we've got some random issues happening. We know on the right side it's green. We know coming to the left side, it gets a little hazy brown. And then here in the corner, we've got different spots. Now, the one thing that you need to understand about random patterns is we have to treat each and every single area differently. They're most likely going to have a different conclusion, albeit those conclusions could be very small or they could even be related, but we want to make sure that we treat them individually and not as if it was a uniform pattern across the board. Step number 2 is identifying colors. So the color that we're dealing with is a hazy brown moving from right to left. And then in this bottom corner here, we've got all these random spots that are colored white and a little bit orange, which is interesting to see. So we need to treat both of these areas separately. So color and patterns, amazing how much of a story it can really tell at that point, but we don't want to come to conclusions. So let's get into this a little bit. You're going to notice on the pattern, especially here on the ground, we're here forward. Now, light brown, and I'm noticing a little bit of white in here as well. It's usually going to indicate a couple of things. Number one, we've got some dead matter. Number two, it's associated with lack of water is commonly what we're dealing with. And so in this area, that would be the assumption. But we really have to get onto the other tests in order to verify that. Now over here, we've got kind of that orange haze. Orange is usually indicative of one of two things: burning, fungus. It's typically one of the two. And so we're going to take all this data and kind of push it aside and see what the other steps are going to tell us. So let's jump right into step number 3. Step number 3 is the water saturation test. And I love using a soil probe because it makes it really easy to see what's going on in the soil. I'm going to pick the greenest part of the grass because that usually tells me it's got a sufficient amount of water, tells me what things should look like. And look at this plug, man. It's looking juicy. This is all the dirt that he pulled in, which is really nice. The root structure is also what we're going to be looking at here real quick. This upper layer is called the thatch layer. And this one actually looks somewhat healthy, but we're going to start seeing some tell signs. Now you want to see dirt in the thatch layer, and we have dirt about quarter of the way through, but you'll notice this entire, it's almost bordering on ½ inch, has nothing in it. And this can become problematic. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. As far as the watering goes, you're going to notice that we've got a decent amount of water saturation, about 6 inches under, and that's exactly where we want to be. Now, the one thing that's not really showing you is that although the water is sufficient, evaporation is starting to kick up as temperatures kick up. So I'd prefer to see a little bit more water in here than what we really have. But let's keep on with the soil probe. So the trick to the soil probe is not only we want to go to the green spots, but we want to go to the brown spots. And the brown spots, the soil probe is stopping short. So I want to see how short that's going to be, because then right next to it, we have a really, really long plug. And that's going to happen every now and then, but I'm being a little bit deceived because it looks like the water has been even. Now, this doesn't surprise me because over the last 3 days, we've had nothing but rainstorms. And so this might just be residual effect of not having enough water from before. But then we go straight over here, and it's hard to tell by the plug, but just by feeling it, we've got half the amount of water. But I highly recommend soil probes because you get to see exactly what's going on. Okay, so here's what I want to show you, especially with the soil probe. All 220 pounds just will not go in. Safe to say we don't have a sufficient amount of water right here. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about the soil saturation test in a bit, and we'll move on to step number 4, and that is a pull test. So the pull test is here so we can see if we have any issues actively with either fungus, but primarily we're checking for bug activity. So what we're gonna do is we're simply gonna take a big handful of grass like this and pull on it. No crabby pinchers. Anybody can kind of come in here and rip out grass and go, see, there's bugs. No, it doesn't work like that. We're gonna take this, kind of pull on it, really hefty in both the spots that look drier than others and the green spots, and we're going to test the entire lawn out. Now, if we did potentially have an issue, stuff's going to come out like sheets of pizza.
I like pizza.
Like slices at a time. It's almost scary. Now, if you do run into that problem, the last thing you want to do is to rip out all the grass. Some of these times we can put just the right amount of fertilizer in there, get it re-stimulated, and get the roots to grow back and reattach. So just keep that in mind. But the biggest issue on this property, not really running into any problems, so we can check that box off that we don't have any bug activity. Step number 5 is the debris test. Now, I like to do this even on lawns that were just recently sodded. And this is almost shocking, right? A lot of the brown color can actually be clouded by this debris. And right now, it's not looking very good. I would dare say on a scale of need to dethatch versus don't need to dethatch, fail. They definitely got to dethatch. And I know the instinct is Ginja, how could that even be possible? We just laid that sod down. Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, when you let grass go dormant and you don't do a short mow, you're left with a lot of debris, and you notice it's all just laid down, kind of matted itself. There's a couple of things about this, is it's preventing new growth from coming up in its place. And in return, I'll show you here, it's just clouded the color. So we removed all of this debris from this one spot, which just 2 seconds ago looked just like this. And so you really increase the color, but it's not just that area, it's across the board. We're getting all of that debris. So let's get into the fun stuff. How do we put all this information together between the color, the pattern, the debris test, water saturation test, and the pull test? Well, ultimately, we know the history on this lawn. We know that they ended up putting in new sod. You can clearly see all the markings that are all the way throughout the cut. We've got a few weed issues as well, but let's talk about causation here. We've got a couple of things going on. The brown pattern kind of tells us exactly what happened. We know that we have a history of lack of water, which is kind of why it's hazy brown. When I get right into the cut, we do have a little bit of what I would call melting out disease, where the grass tips literally kind of browned out. You've got these little black specks, and they call it melting out because it looks like the grass is literally melting. So it goes from that yellow tip to a green tip. Well, at the end of the day, a lot of people, when they put in sod, they're gonna flood irrigate this entire thing. Not saying it's wrong, it's just not how I prefer to do it, but that also creates fungus. That fungus can live through the mat layer, but it typically dies off if you have cold winters like we do here in Utah. But the other flip side of it is we've got all these lines in the sod, and that can be a very common thing. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But then what it shows me is we probably cut the water off too early. So you can see every area from here over is pretty brown. And so ultimately we know what causation is. Now, Now, let's get back into the whole theme. What do you do? What is the best practices after you put sod in? Number one is getting it rooted. We know that this grass rooted just fine. Number two is controlling the thatch. And you really can only do that once you get about 6 to 8 weeks out. The second issue is fertilizing appropriately. So you need to know your soil type and you need to know exactly what's in the soil. So highly recommend doing a soil test. I use a company called My Soil just because they test plant available nutrients. So you get the data that you need to feed the actual plant. So that's the direction that we're going to have to go. Then we can get the right fertilizer down at the right time throughout the season. The third thing is, and this is kind of what I want to talk about, the theme of the video, and this is where this shocks people all the time. We actually have a thatch problem. It's from here to here in those plugs that I was showing you. Pretty consistent that we have 1/4 of an inch of thatch to a 1/2 inch of this root mass. And the problem isn't that we have the root mass. The problem is there's no dirt in the root mass. And that makes a big difference in the plant. So we've got two things going on. We've got all this debris and we have a bunch of root mass. So how do we fix it? Well, we're gonna aerate the soil and we're gonna use the scarifier to break through that root mass. Now, the quickest way to fix a thatch problem where it's just growing way out of control on the top layer is to introduce soil into that thatch layer. So in our instance, we've got a really nice healthy amount of good and rich topsoil, about 8 inches, but I still want to increase the porosity here because I know underneath that it's all solid clay. So I'm going to bring in sand and we're going to top level this whole thing. It's going to act, the ability for the water to get through the holes and to actually saturate the soil, it's going to act a little bit like sugar for the grass. Plus, that sand's going to get into that thatch layer, and then that thatch layer starts creating dirt like it was meant to do again. It gets really healthy. So then we'll see a huge increase of color, nutrient uptake, and availability in the plant. Everything's going to get really, really happy. So then let's talk about all these lines. Well, all these lines are going to be dealt with by putting down the sand. So we're going to have a few problems with grass not growing through because we're going to have to put too much sand in. Ideally, you only want to put in anywhere between 1/4 of an inch and a 1/2 inch of sand at any given time to allow the grass to grow through. And that's pretty common practice. We're going to get a little bit more aggressive on this because it's kind of like we're putting butter on top of toast to get rid of a lot of the ruts. Now, because of that, we may end up needing to overseed a little bit. And here in my Mountain West region, it's going to get real hot real soon. We're going to be in the 90s, maybe even 100 degrees. And I found that a perennial ryegrass matches really, really well with Kentucky bluegrass. And so probably put down an annual or a perennial rye. Eventually, the bluegrass should chase it out. So I'm not overly concerned about that. It's gonna match really, really well too. But we've got another issue that I didn't really talk about. We've got this Rhizomatous Johnson grass kind of poking through, and it looks like they had replaced a couple pieces of sod and there was just this Johnson grass in it because it's basically this piece and then we have another piece about right here. And so I'm going to recommend that we cut that out and just either go get a new piece of sod, which might actually be the easiest way of doing it. And then we've got a bunch of this foxtail. We've got two choices. Since we're going to be sand leveling, we may just be able to dig it out. I'm going to try using a weed puller on some of this in the future just to see if I can get it to work. But the biggest problem that we have at the moment is watering. It's not even. So I'm going to recommend that we do a water output cup test. And again, if you keep watching in the future, we're going to go through all this one by one. So we're going to put the cups out, see how even distribution the sprinklers actually are. From what I've been told, sprinklers aren't working right now. So that's part of the reason why the saturation's just kind of all over the place. We got enough from the rains coming in, but not enough to wake it up.
So what about those random dead spots in the lower corner of the lawn? Well, if you've done this for long enough, you'll notice that the pattern, the color, and the green growth on the outside of the dead spot all indicate dog urine. That concentrated nitrogen is a burn, not a feeding. It kills the center and the outer edges get just enough to grow dark and lush. If you catch the dog in the act, you can flood it with enough water to avoid it. But if it's already dead like this, we're going to need to scuff up the soil, top dress, and reseed or sod the areas.
So other than that, I'd say let's go ahead and start the party. We're gonna wake up the lawn by putting out ammonium sulfate. And I like doing this early spring because bluegrass, it just needs a little bit of a jump start. And so we're gonna put the AMS down at about 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. So mathematically, if you take the bag number and divide 100 by the bag number, which is 25 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Now, the beautiful part about using ammonium sulfate, and this is Stay Green, I just picked it up at my local hardware store, is I know that this blue spreader, because I measured it out, will give me about 4 pounds of product when it's full. So because of that, I know that I'm gonna go over the lawn about 4.5 to 5 times with this particular spreader. If you feel like I missed anything or if you'd like to add something, be sure to hit us up down in the comments down below. You know I'd love to help you guys out. Until next time, guys, the Pest and Lawn Ginja. We're slaying lawns.